the order. So in order of operations, we have an order to follow in order to solve. So let's go over what these are. So to start off with, the first thing we're going to do is look for if there's any parentheses in the problem, because then we're going to start there. Then the next thing we're going to look for is we're going to look for exponents. And we're going to deal with the exponents, and we'll deal with that. Then after the exponents, the next thing to do is either to look at multiplying or dividing. Now remember that we always work left to right when we look into multiplying and dividing. Then the last step is adding and subtracting. Now, in order for us to remember the order, we can kind of look at the first letter of these. And we can remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. To kind of remember the order, right? So we see the P, the E, M, D, A, S. The other thing that people like to also look at is they spell out this word like Penn does. So whichever one works, and some people like to do this vertically rather than horizontally to kind of remember the order going from top to bottom. So now let's look at some examples. So example 1, we have 5 minus 3, then in parentheses we have 2 plus 4 squared. So let's write this out. So the first thing we need to deal with is our parentheses. And we can see it right here. So when we look inside the parentheses, then we go back to the order of operations again to see how we go about solving this. So inside the parentheses, we see we have an exponent. So we'll deal with that first. So when we go ahead and rewrite this, everything else will stay the same. So we have 4 squared. So 4 times 4 is just 16. Then what's the next step? After we've dealt with the exponents, we don't have to multiply or divide. So then let's look at the addition, because we see we have an addition inside the parentheses. We need to deal with that first. So we have 5 minus 3. 2 plus 16 is then 18. So now we're done with that. We're done with the parentheses. So let's go ahead and just really check that off for now. We look to see that we don't have any more exponents, so we don't have to do that. But we do have a multiplication. Right here is a multiplication. We have a 3 times 18. This 3 next to this parentheses, it's really a multiplication. So we can throw a dot there or an X like a multiplication sign. Either one works. So we have 18 times 3. 18 times 3, which is 54. So then we have 5 minus 3 times 18, which is 54. Now 5 minus 54, as we're done with multiplication, is our last step, will be to subtract. So we have 5 minus 54, so that's negative 49. And that would be our solution. Now let's do another example. Example 2. A person invests $1,000 into the stock market. In the first week, it increased in profit by 160%. At the beginning of the second week, the person invested an additional $500. By the end of the second week, the total decreased, so only 9/10 of the total from the beginning of the second week remained. So by the third week, the person does not invest any further. Then at the end of the third week, the investment increased in profit by $50. Write an expression for this and then determine the present amount. So what we're doing is we're actually going to set up the problem. So we're going to look up to the problem and kind of start to write it all out. So we see, let's start at the beginning. So a person invests $1,000 into the stock market. So let's go ahead and just write 1,000. Now we don't care about the dollar sign at this moment, but we'll just write the $1,000. Then the second sentence, we have in the first week it increased in profit by 160%. So that means we're going to need to multiply to find the new amount. So in order to do that, we'll just go 160, and then we want to get it out of the percentage. So remember, to get a number out of a percentage, you just go ahead and then divide it by 100. Or you can move the decimal to the left twice. But either one will work because we'll get to the same answer, which will be 1.6. So that's what the first week looks like. So let's just put that in parentheses. So then in the second week, the person invested an additional $500. So let's write that we need to have $500 here. And then that's going to be added to whatever this is. So let's just enclose that space too with parentheses. Then by the end of the second week, the total decreased, so only 9/10 of the total from the beginning of the second week remained. So that means we're actually going to multiply, because if we multiply this fraction by the total, we'll get the new total, which will only be 9/10. So essentially what it's asking, if we had a pie, it was cut into 10 spots and we took out a whole tenth, we only have 9/10 of it remaining. So all we did is we multiplied 1 times the 9/10, so we got 9/10. So that's kind of how it works. And then let's look on and see what else we have to do. And then let's just actually go ahead and close this. And then, so then by the third week, the person doesn't invest any further. So we don't have to add or subtract if we didn't take anything out. So then at the end of the third week, the investment increased in profit by $50. So let's go ahead and add $50 to this whole total. So now we've written our expression. We did it. And then we just have to determine the present amount. So now we just have to go ahead and solve what we just did. So let's go ahead and write this so that way we can look at our problem. So what we're first going to do is look inside the parentheses, right? But notice we have multiple parentheses because we have this in multiple weeks, so we need to deal with. So let's deal with the innermost one. So we're looking at the first week. So we have this $1,000 times 160 over 100. So let's get our calculators out. So we have, let's do this first, 160 divided by 100. So that's 1.6. So if we multiply this 1,000 times this number, let's go ahead and do that. So we get 1,600. And then let's just write out the remaining part. So now we still need to look inside the parentheses. But we're done solving inside this first parentheses, but now we have another one, which would be this one. So let's just go ahead and add 1,600 plus 500 is 2,100. So we'll just put this in one parentheses, and then we have this 9/10, and close it with another parentheses, and then plus this 50. So now we've dealt with the outermost parentheses. So now we've dealt with the innermost parentheses. We still have one more parentheses here, which would be this larger one, because we have 2,100 or 2,100 times 9 over 10. Well, let's go ahead and get our calculators out. So we can go 2,100 times 9 divided by 10, and we get 1,890. So now we've dealt with that parenthesis step. Now we have 1,890 and then plus 50. So to go back to this, we've dealt with our parentheses and we did what the steps told us to do inside the parentheses by looking at this order. Now when we look, we don't have exponents, don't have multiplication or division, but we just have this addition problem here. So if we just go ahead and add this, go plus 50, and we get 1,940. And then this would be in dollars. So that would be the amount of money that they have at the end of the 3rd week.